Hello, my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. Today I want to talk about data privacy and age verification. So there are states in the U.S. that are passing age verification laws. The purpose of these laws are supposed to be to make sure that minors are not consuming adult content or content that is meant for adults. As a result, there are 8 states in the U.S. that have actually passed age verification laws. Those states are North Carolina, Virginia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, Utah, and Montana as of January 2024. So a couple of features of these laws, even though they are trying to make sure that minors are not on some of these sites, some of these laws are requiring that websites that have adult materials, that they have age verification, meaning that every person that uses these sites has to submit their ID or some other form of identification, whether that be a photo ID, a selfie identification. These laws don't necessarily dictate the method in which a company gets that ID, but instead of, like people would typically think, instead of just trying to get ID information about people that they assume or presume could possibly be underage, they're basically saying that these companies should get a ID of everybody who's on these sites. So a couple of things with these laws. So first of all, it's raising a privacy concern because not everyone who uses these sites may trust these sites enough to trust them with their identification. A lot of times when some companies or organizations that are using these things, they may not delete the information once the verification actually happens. Also, being able to combine that data, their ID, with some of the sites that they visit. Some people are concerned that maybe someone may use that information against them. So that's definitely a concern. Another area where age verification comes into play is around the proposed updates to the Children Privacy Online Act, COPPA, and also the laws in, for example, the state of California, where like the Age Appropriate Design Act, where they are trying to raise the age of what is considered a child for these particular purposes. So before a website that had data that they showed to the public, if a person was under the age of 13, they couldn't use that site, and they had to actually check a box and say, hey, I admit that I'm over 13 to use this site. The problem with that is that regulators have really come down hard on companies that have just used that checkbox, because that is, in their view, not true knowledge of the age of the person. So companies now, for example, like Meta with Instagram, they're trying things like selfie identification, where they're trying to take a picture of someone that they presume may not be of age to look at certain content. And so again, a lot of these states, they aren't necessarily dictating how companies do this verification, but I think that depending on the state that you're in, depending on kind of the age level of the people who come to your websites, depending on the content that is on those particular websites, I think age verification will be the bane of a lot of companies' existence, not just because they may have like adult material, but then also material that may not be intended for children, even though it's not necessarily of a provocative content. So it remains to be seen what's going to happen in 2024 with these age verification laws. I think it's definitely very challenging, especially if people are being asked to provide, either their selfie, photographs of themselves, their photo ID for a multitude of websites that they access, and also being able to make sure that that information is accurate. I think it's going to become a huge challenge for companies, and also a privacy concern. So the more data that you collect, the more you add risk in terms of cybersecurity and privacy, in terms of how that data is collected and retained. That's it. Thank you.